So I'm pretty excited about our live today because it's not going to be just me. I am going to bring in my superpower, my team's superpower to help you supercharge your sales and enrollment. And what we're going to talk about today is all of the different blocks that typically show up both in people's minds and in their coaching practices that block their clients from ascending from prospect all the way to here's my credit card. You ready? Let's do this.
Bumper. Back to Geeta. 5, 2, cue.
Hey, so I want to talk. I'm going to introduce you to Phil Sterling Hall, who is on our team. So he is both our sales coach. So he's going to be coaching our clients specifically around selling. So we actually brought him in. And here's why we chose him for this position. He's also the head of our own enrollment team. So I want to share some numbers with you. And I had to write them down because are you sitting down, people? Listen to this. So he helped another coaching company similar to us hit their first $500,000 month. This was his first ever month on their team. Okay. He ran his own sales coaching consultancy. So he's done this as an owner. He's taught people sales. This guy lives, breathes, eats, sleeps enrollment, but not like closer, Dan Locke, some disrespect to be fair. Sales, not that, but this more spiritually aligned, there's no selling required type sales. So you're going to love him. And he actually, I love these. These are the numbers that really excited me when we were having our interview process, when we were bringing him onto the team. He shortened a healthcare company's sales cycle from 8 weeks. So again, the time between someone wanting to buy and someone actually giving them money used to be 8 weeks for them. He shortened that to 2 weeks. And he actually helped close $4 million in a single month for another company that he worked for. And now he is running our sales. Woohoo! So without much further ado, I would love to introduce you to Phil so that we can talk about all things sales and enrollment in this premium space. Hey, Phil.
Hey,
so
Geeta.
I'm looking over at my monitor here so that I can see. Give me a hey, like where you're from. If you guys are watching this live, I want to know who's watching. There's Phil, so he can be able to see who's on here as well with us. And I'm super excited to be talking to you today about the 5, like we talked back and forth. Hey, Phil, while we were planning this, and we were looking at like, what are the biggest mistakes, missteps, either bad systems or lack of systems that gets in the way of coaches and consultants closing premium enrollments? And this is what we came up with. So do you want to kick us off? Tell us what you're like. We're going to go backwards. Okay. So the most juicy one is going to be the one we do last. Tell me where you're from. By the way, if you're watching this live, tell me where you're from. Tell me what your topic is. I love doing that because it helps us get to know you. And if you're watching the replay, give me a big old hashtag replay so that we can come back and answer your questions and comments after this live is done. All right, Phil, kick us off. What's number 5?
Yeah. Number 5 is you don't really know where on the continuum your ideal client needs to be ready to make a buying decision. So I'll say that again. Unless you are very clear on where your prospect's buyer's journey, right? That's a continuum. If you are not clear on where they are on said continuum and where on that continuum is buying time, then you're probably struggling to enroll because you think it's time to propose marriage. They think it's your first date.
So, that makes so much sense, Phil. And thanks for bringing that up. And this is one of the reasons why at Impact with Influence, we literally devote an entire week of our program, the first week, into who the heck is your ideal client? How are their version of you? Where on the continuum do they need to be in order to be ready to buy? You know, Phil, you brought this beautiful, you really helped me crystallize my understanding of this. Because you're coming at it from not the owner, right? You're not me. You're not the front man of this. You're not the name and face that everybody knows. And yet you're on our team helping clients make that enrollment decision. And one of the things you talked about was kind of where, like, we talked in great detail about what it takes for you to be comfortable inviting somebody into our program. And we really got into like nitty gritty details about this. Do you want to talk about some of the things that we talked about? Like, I remember you talking about the consumer versus the producer mindset. That was a really juicy one for me. I loved that.
Yeah. Well, I think in a lot of ways, one of the risks that, is very prevalent in the online coaching space is, if you've got a very titillating offer, if you're good at marketing, right, you're making a promise that draws people in, are you drawing your ideal client in, or are you drawing your ideal client in plus a lot of people who could maybe create a less than ideal client fulfillment experience, right? And so that's where the kind of the producer versus consumer mindset, kind of comes into play, because in my experience, where I've seen things not go correctly is where someone is still operating with an employee or consumer type of mental framework where, they're the customer and the customer is always right? They're treating buying a seat in an online coaching program the same way they would treat, buying a car or something like that. And so what happens sometimes is, and I'd be curious to hear in the comments if you've ever dealt with this, where it was such a leap for this person to make the investment, right? They had to muster up that much courage, get that creative, to beg, borrow, steal, to pay you your price, that when they did that, job's all done. I did my part as the consumer. I paid you my money. Now it's time for you to move into my house, fan me with palm fronds, feed me grapes by hand, and out the other end, I'll be a 6-figure a month business owner, right? Anybody dealt with anything like that where,
Yeah. Exactly. Like when you're in that premium space, like this is the risk that I think subconsciously a lot of people are bracing for this impact, where it's exactly as you say, right? It took them, like, we don't work with people who don't have a business owner mentality. So if somebody is like, it doesn't matter if you have a 9-to-5 job that you're still working, but you're clear that you're a business owner, because business owners take risks. That is part of the game. No refunds, no guarantees. Like if you need a guarantee and a refund, then again, we're not the right company for you to work with. And I'll tell you why we don't do refunds. It's a very conscious decision that we took, because when somebody is in our program, I want there to be no fences up anybody's crotch. Do you know what I mean? Like no one's sitting on a fence being like, is it the right decision? Is it not the right decision? I'm not really sure. You know what I mean? I want them to be crystal clear where the only question that we ask when something isn't working is, how do we make this work? Not, is this going to work? Are they the right person? None of those things. In order for that to be the only question, we need to have an A team, and we need to have them fully deployed to make sure that no matter what comes up in the process of building out this business, we've got something for this client to get them unstuck. That level of commitment, we're coming in 100% committed to that, and clients need to meet us there. And that was a decision that we're very clear about and that we made. So otherwise it's like, are they going to get halfway through the program and then ask for a refund? Or if they're not fully committed to the process and not committed to getting out the other side at their dream, not the right fit, not the right time. And that's cool. That's totally fine. And they need to work with other people. They need to try their own thing until they get to that point of readiness where they're clear where they're going. They just need some help getting there. That's when people are the perfect fit for us. And knowing these, like how many of you are crystal clear on where your ideal client needs to be on this continuum, so that, and Phil, you had this beautiful way of phrasing it and framing it for me, which was, it's like you're going into this call thinking, okay, these people you've created. So first of all, most of them don't have a journey that they've created with their messaging and so on. We've done that. So because we've created that messaging journey, by the time somebody gets to the call, it's time to make a decision. So You're going in, like we're going in on our end, going in to be like, this is a decision call. Either you're in or you're out. You're the right fit or you're not. But if they're coming in to be like, I just want to gather some information, research that I didn't bother to do, even though all the assets are out there, we don't do those calls. That's a conscious decision we've made, right? Have you seen that? Like
Exactly.
You've been in a lot of coaching programs on the coach end of things, right? And that's where I see, like, they're coming in to date and you're coming in with a ring and a garland and whatever else is necessary. And then people are like weirded out in that moment. That's when sales gets weird.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately with the conflicting agendas, right? The first date versus the proposal dynamic. If you don't address this, you're inevitably creating a lot more time and energy input than is needed for you to consistently enroll people. Because, I mean, like, what's going to happen? You're proposing marriage. They think you're on a first date. You're not going to enroll on the first call. You're going to have courtship, follow up. It's going to lower your confidence. You're going to feel like you're chasing people down, convincing them that, please, enroll with me. Please, don't forget about me, right? And that's not a fun place to be. Right. And so the more in alignment your people are with what the call is really about, right, which is, this is the final step of your decision-making process, right, versus this is step one of a long courtship. The sooner you can address that misalignment, the more, first call enrollments you'll have, the less, wild goose chases you'll feel like you need to deal with, and everybody wins, right? And now, one thing to mention, just because this is something, because Geeta, you mentioned I've been on the, behind the scenes on a coaching capacity with a lot of online programs. This is something where I can see this idea of like, well, my people are producers, they're A players, they don't need a babysitter. This can be taken to the extreme, where because we're working with, badass people that show up, right? That can give us an excuse to get sloppy on our fulfillment and have outdated modules or delayed response times with support. And that's one of the things I appreciate most about, the program here with Geeta, Impact with Influence. It's a 5-star white glove experience that it's a premium experience to match our premium price point. It is not well, you're an entrepreneur, you can Google a little bit, like whatever. That violates, some natural laws of the marketplace, right? That violates 100%. The agreement. So I would say, you need to be just as, if you're expecting them to show up committed, you need to have that commitment mirrored in your fulfillment and how up to date and how polished and just how 5 out of 5 stars the experience you're creating for your clients is, for it to be a fair expectation on your part for them to really show up the way you want them to. So.
And I want to nuance that, because now people are like, oh crap, I'm going to have to build a giant polished Kajabi with all the graphics and the things. And that's not actually what it is. And I want to be very clear about this. It's not about how pretty it is. It is about how premium it is. And premium is about support, which means when a client doesn't show up to one of our calls, we're not like, okay, whatever. We just like answer the questions that they asked. First of all, we don't answer the questions that they ask. Typically, we answer the question behind the question that they asked. That's how they get the actual clarity to move forward. That's how the block is actually removed. That's the first thing. Second thing is, somebody shows up to a call, doesn't ask a question, is sitting there. We can tell from their body language, something's up here. We will ask. We will get in there. That you don't need a fancy ass Kajabi or any of that stuff for this way of showing up. Somebody doesn't show up to a call, they're going to get pinged. Someone's going to text them, someone's going to message them, be like, hey, what's going on? Are you stuck? Are you working? Because what we realized was that everybody that we work with is a type A overachiever. Like, right? You attract who you are. Everybody on the team is like that too. It is what it is, right? So we know that as badass as we are, we also still often drive very fast cars with the handbrake up. So we know this, we are this. And so we've designed a program that makes sure that we're getting in there and understanding where our clients typically will get blocked. How do we know this? And this answers a little bit what Reina asked. How do you know where in the client journey, where on the continuum your client is? It's because you have to ask yourself, where on your journey in your continuum did you first raise your hand to say, I will pay a premium to solve this problem. My dream is worth it. My fulfillment in this life is worth taking a gigantic or medium size or whatever, however you want to see it now. At the time, it will always be gigantic, no matter what the dollar amount is. That's the truth. A gigantic financial risk. I will risk the money. I will risk the ridicule. I will risk the judgment of my family. I will risk all of the doubt and fear that's going to inevitably bubble up in me. It is worth it. An entrepreneur, the fucking definition of entrepreneur is somebody who risks, somebody who makes something out of nothing. That you need to bring that to the table. But does that mean that you're in that risk alone? Oh, heck no. You're in that risk now with a whole team behind you who has blazed that trail, who has cleared that path, who knows the ways, who's hiding in the bushes that you're going to be like, oh, bush, let me go hide. And they'll be like, hi, how have you been? We were waiting for you to come here because we know this is your pattern. Let's talk about what's actually keeping you stuck, right? And that's how we do what we do. And that's why it's worth the early 5-figure investment, because it will collapse the time. Like what might take you a decade to figure out on your own, you'll be able to do in a matter of weeks. We've seen it. We just broke a record today. We just had on our group coaching call that happened earlier today, we broke our record previous to this was 120K made during the 8-week program. And we have a client right now, they're at 200K cash collected, and they're not even done the program yet. They're at week 6 or 7 at the moment. Just saying. So that's what we create. Okay. I know, right? We were all like, yes. Immigrant woman of color, just saying, like she like all the stories you tell yourself about why this is not available to you, we just busted them. And we're gonna record that case study and talk about exactly what we did to make this happen. That's coming soon. But anyway, let's move on. What's number 4?
Number 4 is you have not actually dealt with your own internal objections to the sale.
Yes. Okay. How many times does this come up, right? Like let's call out the elephant in the room, imposter syndrome, right? If you have imposter syndrome, what are some of the objections that you typically see, Phil, like when you're sales coaching or when you've worked on other teams with people, like what do you typically see as some of the objections that come up?
The objections that come up if someone hasn't worked through their own objections, I mean, it's a mirror. It's what you would say to your own offer, right? So do you think you would pay what you're asking someone else to pay? Do you believe in your price point? Or are you performing mental gymnastics every time at the point of sale where you're like, well, I wouldn't pay it, but I'm not them, so it's worth it for them, right? And you think that that's not being broadcast very clearly,
subconsciously,
between the lines, right? The other thing is, I mean, with the imposter syndrome, it really comes down to like, how confident am I in my ability to get results? And it's not as simple as that, right? Because it's not so much, do I have the goods, right? You can say, yes, I'm great, but it's always qualified. It's, yes, I'm great at what I do and I know I can get results, asterisk, footnote for the right person. Right.
Yes.
And so
sorry,
how does that show up in a, oh no.
No,
I was like, we're going to be finishing each other's sentences on the slide.
I know, right? I totally want to finish that sentence.
But the way it shows up in your sales calls is you don't trust yourself to properly qualify. You do not trust yourself to clearly distinguish and know where is that line you draw between right fit and wrong fit. Offer made, this has been great, but we're not a fit, right? How do you tell the difference? And it all goes back to imposter syndrome and would you buy your own offer, right? So
at that price point. at that
Right.
price point. And again, or, sometimes you don't need to buy your own offer because you've already gone through whatever it is you had to go through to get here, but you have a pressing problem, right? If you're a health coach, maybe your marriage is on the rocks. Would you pay a premium to fix your marriage? Or you're a marriage coach and your business is on the rocks. Would you pay a premium to fix your business? If you have a pressing central problem that is sucking your joy, would you be willing and able, and would you actually take that commitment and pay a premium to fix it? And if you haven't, then this is not some stupid meme about like coaches need coaches, because that sounds good on paper. I'll tell you what it actually, like, that really bugs me, but I'll tell you what it actually means. It means that if you have, first of all, you're going to attract, if you're super price conscious and you're all like contracted about money, you're going to attract people who have that exact same energy, because we always attract who we are. Okay. So that's the first thing. And then the second part of that is, let's say you get to that part of the call where you're like, okay, here's what the investment is, right? If you're dreading it, because you would dread it if you were on the receiving end. We always empathize with our client, right? So if you're on the receiving end and you're like, bracing for impact, then you're going to make the offer with the bracing for impact energy. And we all seek impact, like changing lives, but we often brace for impact in this moment. That's kind of clever. Come on, that's pretty clever. Come on. That's pretty clever.
Credit where credit's due.
Thank you.
There you go.
So all this to say that, and I'm watching the comments scroll here. You guys are so hilarious. I'm loving Jennifer Raja's drop her like truth bomb. She like synthesizes what I'm saying and then or what we're saying, and then she'll put it in the comments. So thank you for doing that. And Reina is hysterical as always. So all this to say that if you get to that moment of you're dropping the investment and you're cringing, they will cringe. I mean, Phil, we recently coached somebody in our client base who came from a kind of anti-capitalist nonprofit background, and she would cringe about asking for money. And we helped her shift this internally with all the mindset work and the clearing and such. She had her first $70,000 month. And you know what her takeaway from that was? When I stopped cringing, they stopped cringing. When I stopped making money a huge deal, they stopped making money a huge deal. And I'm talking about people, she had problems with her Stripe account where she couldn't process that payment. And they were like texting her and messaging her to be like, can you please process my payment? I'm really anxious to get started. Like, no joke. Okay. So yeah, deal with your internal objections. You gotta love that. Deal with your internal objections so they don't keep fucking showing up on your calls, because you will be forced to deal with them regardless. Either you choose to deal with them on your own timeline or you deal with them on your calls, but you will have to deal with them. And it's up to you which way you want to do it. So yeah, and that brings us to our next point, which is not having a compelling offer. Phil, I would love to throw this one to you, because you've worked on a team where you're not the person fulfilling the offer. And what is the challenge on your end, just from a pure enrollment perspective, of selling something that you're like, people don't really want it, or people don't find it compelling, or you're not 100% convinced? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think the big thing that really separates a compelling offer from a non-compelling offer, what's the antonym there? But
offer that sucks.
Yeah.
Offer.
Right. A meh. That's good. So a compelling versus meh offer, it's really just, this is all connected, but it goes back to, are you meeting them at the place on the continuum that they're at? Right. Because like, for example, we do a ton of mindset work in our program. It's the cornerstone of everything. But if we were like, hey, come join this mindset program, it would be an uphill battle, because you need to be addressing something that people can point to in their real life for them to go, ooh, let me stop and pay attention to what you have to say, because you're describing my problem better than I can, which makes me perceive you as an authority, as someone that can give, that gives me hope that maybe there's a way out, right? But if you're describing something that I can't point to, all I'll ever really be is mildly interested or curious.
Yeah.
And that's when I come to sales calls ready to take notes so that I can then keep my research of free stuff going versus coming to the call ready to make a purchasing decision because I know you've got the solution to my present pain. Like that's
exactly.
It's a lack of alignment.
And you said something really, really important. And Jennifer Rogers is like, what's the opposite of compelling? Repulsive. It's often not repulsive. It's bland. It's bland. It's an offer that would be a nice to have. Something that would be like, yeah, I will totally get to that after I solve this really pressing problem of mine. Like when I have no problems, that's when I'll buy that. That's typically like, it's bland. It's not repulsive. That has a lot of energy to it. It's just nothing. It's like, oh, it's like very, like it doesn't really resonate for you.
It's a low priority. It's
a low priority.
It's relegated
exactly
to that fantasy reality where you got nothing on your plate at all. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And you talked about how it's so important to have clarity on exactly who that client is and where, again, it's like where on the continuum they are, because when you know who it's for, you said it, you nailed it. You said, you can describe their problem better than they can. That is literally what we help you do in our program. You can describe your client's pain and problem and solution better than they can. And when you do that, it literally takes a few sentences. It takes one live. It takes a short video for people to be like, holy shit. Whoa, it never occurred to me. Like that makes so much sense. This amorphous emotional experience that I've been having that's driving me crazy and sucking my joy and keeping me stuck, this lack of clarity, you just cut through all the noise and you helped me see it. And that is so powerful. And that is what makes people buy a premium, is when you can describe their pain better than they can. That's what we help our clients do. Yeah. And that brings us to, like, after not having a compelling strategy, number 2, as we count down to number 1, and there's a really juicy one coming, is not having a solid pricing strategy. And yeah, we were talking about this on today's call. We were talking about pricing and mindset. And I remember, like, one of our clients, Michelle, who then ended up on our coaching team for a long time. Her agency has taken off like gangbusters. And so she actually graduated our coaching team and is now doing her own thing and is now a friend and supporter. And, she's out there. But all this to say that when she first joined our program, she was charging $1,500 for basically helping somebody define their purpose and putting that message out there, which again makes her either sound like a rank amateur, she is not that. Makes the offer attract people for whom it's not a pressing priority because, they just don't have a lot of budget allocated to fixing that particular problem because they have other fish to fry. Again, doesn't make any sense. But because subconsciously for her, and this woman works so hard, she's so good at what she does. So she is like working 14-hour days long, like she's over delivering. People are on payment plans and defaulting on payments. This is the place that she found us in, that she was in when she found us. And the reason that people didn't buy, like most people think, oh, people won't buy if I price it too high because people won't see the value and therefore they won't buy. In Michelle's case, people weren't buying because she priced it too low and she was out of integrity with her own pricing. The second we helped her raise her price to $7K, which is where she started when she went through our program, she couldn't even see more than 4K. She was like, oh, I don't think anyone's going to pay more than 4K. And I was like, I will tell you I told you so when you get there. And I did, because week 2, we helped her design her offer. She saw exactly what the offer was. And she was like, oh my God, this is a $7K offer. And I was like, I told you so. And I told you I would tell you so. So I told you so about that too. I'm a real joke. So, but she sold her first 2 programs at $7K. And then she immediately moved it up to $10K. And, now it's way higher than that even. So all this to say that when her pricing came into integrity with the actual offer, all the friction, she has a 90% close rate. That means out of every 10 people that get on a call with her, that's not too shabby, right?
Pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. Out of every 10 people that get on a call with her, 9 people will buy. So she doesn't need that many calls. She just doesn't. So again, so how does one's pricing get into integrity? How do you qualify? So somebody just asked, how do you qualify the price to value? we teach this in great detail, and we go through this with people in our program. So having this be a supported journey where we're asking you lots of deep questions. First of all, it's really hard to answer this question without first knowing exactly who your ideal client is and exactly what they're bringing to the table. But, do you want to take that question, Phil? Some of the different ways that we've looked at pricing. What does it cost somebody to have that problem, for example? Yeah, go ahead.
Like some exercises you can do independently, just to kind of get you from 0 to 1 a little bit. It comes down to, well, I would hope when you look at, well, what is the value of the transformation that I create? It's a pretty immediate, well, it's priceless, right? Like, could you really put a price, like if you're a health coach, could you put a price on giving someone the ability to like what they see when they look in the mirror? To give someone the ability to have confidence that they'll be able to chase their toddler grandkids around instead of watch them run around and say, grandma's just a little too tired right now, but you can come sit on her lap, right? See what I mean? Right? But a lot of people don't think that deeply because we're stuck in our experts vortex of stuff and how many modules and the stuff. It's never the stuff, it's the result. And so putting a price tag on a priceless result, well, and then it comes down to you a little bit, right? Well, what would you need to be paid to never, ever feel resentful for showing up at 1000%, right? Like, you can do some math. Like, what is the maximum number of clients that I can serve at the highest level in a given month? What's my ideal monthly income? Divide your ideal monthly income by your maximum number of clients that you can serve and still have the lifestyle that gives you a life you don't need a vacation from, not you creating another job for yourself with this business, right? There's the first little step down the rabbit hole towards your ideal price. But as Geeta mentioned, it's not fully contextual because there's so many things that are tied to it. But that is something that, if you got to go right now and you need something tactical, take your maximum number of clients you can serve at your best, right? And your ideal monthly income and do the math. So
exactly. And again, we teach you to build a scalable business where you're going to not be working exclusively one-on-one. So again, that math can really open up so that you're not like, oh, I'm going to get to 3 clients and that's literally all I can handle, because if I get another 3 clients the next month, then by end of month 2, I have 6 clients. If I'm doing all one-on-one, is that sustainable? Maybe not. And then if your subconscious is like, oh shit, you're going to burn out, you're going to start not showing up to sales calls, you're going to be inconsistent with your messaging, you're going to not put yourself out there because you're protecting yourself, and legitimately so. So having those different pieces align is really crucial. And then also ask yourself, what does it cost to continue to have this problem? How much have you paid already? Like, one of the things we did with a coach that we worked with who helps binge eaters get food freedom. So it's not a diet program. It is not an exercise program. It is really to help heal a compulsion and addiction to food, where food is being used as a tool to smother other things and cover up other things. So we looked at the typical health problems that long-term binge eating creates for her population. We looked at some of the specifics of what people pay for things like bariatric surgery, which is what the typical solution for somebody in that position would be, right? This is what the mainstream offers. What do people pay for all the clothes, all the different sizes that they've been because they just can't control their binge eating? And, at Christmas time, they're like gaining 20 pounds because they just can't stop eating because they're around their family full of triggers, yada, yada, all of that. We looked at all of that and we helped her price her program. And guess what? People pay it. And it's significantly more than the competition charges because the competition doesn't do what she does. And that's a huge part of, you have to communicate that as well. And that's why the messaging piece is so important. And that brings us to number 1. You want to do the unveil? This is like all yours. I want you to talk about the belief tripod because it's so sexy. Talk about it. So what's our number 1? The number 1 reason that coaches and consultants struggle to sell, especially at a premium, is, drum roll please,
you're not making offers, you're asking for sales.
Exactly. So part of it is people just don't even ask. Like, and I know so many clients that never actually ask for the sale. They think they are, but they're doing it in such a nuanced, soft, peddly way that nobody kind of gets it, that there is a sale available. So that's part of it. And then I love this, like, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. You love the.
I love the way that, like, when we were talking this through, you were talking about like the difference between offering something and asking for a sale, and that how that energy shifts from like pulling and pushing versus like leaning back and allowing. And that is so powerful. So
yeah, I mean, just like the figuring out your ideal price is kind of like your actual like price is the tip of the iceberg underneath all of this other stuff below the surface that's, you know, like a well-oiled machine and totally in alignment. Like what I tell people when it comes to the pricing, just, and this ties into this, is say your price like you say your name. It's a fact. It is not the opening shot of negotiations, and how you say your price broadcasts how confident you are in your ability to deliver. And so how do we get to the point where you can say your price like you say your name? Well, in my journey through the sales world, that's all I've done since I've been working. I've never really made money in any other capacity, and I've done a lot of different things in the sales world with a lot of different sales cycles, a lot of different industries. And what I've found to be kind of a framework for sustainable success, because anyone with a relatively okay EQ and, you know, the ability to have a genuine conversation with someone about a mutually interesting topic, you can do pretty well at a sales role for a little bit, and then you burn out. Why? Well, it's this framework that I've come sort of put together. I've learned it the hard way, so you don't have to. You don't have to spend 11 years getting, you know, knocked around. I call it the belief tripod, because ultimately your beliefs influence everything, right? They influence your thoughts, which influence your words, which influence your actions, which influence your habits, and habits, you know, are you.
Create results.
Right?
Yeah,
right.
100%.
And so the belief tripod, because it's a tripod because all three beliefs are absolutely essential. You can't get away with 2 out of 3, especially not 1 out of 3. And just like with the tripod, you kick one leg out, what's it do?
It just doink.
It topples. And so atop your belief tripod sits your sustainable, empowered enrollment, consistent, no selling required. Why do people get freaked out about having lots of calls? I love my calls. I look forward to my calls. Yes. That's what's waiting for you when this is properly fostered. And so they're all equal. So I'm not going in order of importance. This is just order. So the first one is you got to believe in your process. You got to believe in your lead generation and sales / enrollment process, because at the end of the day, the pain of hearing no, or I got to think about it, or let me, you know, burn some sage and, you know, consult the oracle to get certainty from them because I can't get it from you before I can make my decision, right? Like, let
me go talk to my spouse so they can talk me out of it.
Right. That's a normal response to that. Are we good? Apologies if it's my internet. Okay.
And we're back. Can you hear us? Technical glitches, audio is glitches. Yes, I know. We realized that at some point I was like telling you everything and we were frozen and you did not hear it. So let's rewind a little bit. Where were we? So we were talking about belief in your process. And this is why in week 3 of our program, we actually teach a sales process. It's like there's all of the different pieces, from what is the post that you put out? How do you message to get people warmed up, educated, resold, so that by the time they come to the call, again, they're clear that they're going to make a decision. You're clear that they're going to make a decision. Like you're on the same page. There is alignment, which is a beautiful thing. And we teach you. And so you're talking about, faith in your process. Do you feel like you have a process that you can follow that feels good to you, that is in alignment with who you are, and that helps your clients ultimately, whether they work with you or not, so that you can do it over and over. So if somebody says no, if somebody really does have to think about it, or somebody, as you said, has to consult the oracle or has to go have their spouse talk them out of it, right? Which is typically how most people use their spouses. They're like, you have a really good way of explaining this, Phil. You're like, I'm not sure. So let me go talk to someone who has no information about this whatsoever to help me make my decision. That's what that is, really.
That's the reality. That's what they're telling you they want to do, which is like a blinking neon sign of, I can't get certainty from you, so I need to get it from a less informed source, which makes so much sense, right? So maybe like when I say belief in your process, it's really what it comes down to is your willingness and your confidence when hearing anything other than yes, do you take Amex? Right? Your ability to withstand the no's is directly proportional to your confidence in your ability to generate new calls with qualified prospects. If this is the one time this month you've got someone that's a good fit on the phone who can afford your price, they're going to smell that. And there's a lot of parallels between sales and dating, but usually the desperate person who's super clingy and needy and please date me, they're not.
No one wants to date that guy.
They're not winning, right? And so if you're acting like that in your sales calls, it's because you're just not confident enough. You don't believe in your process that it's got your back. Like you're not in a position where you can afford to be. You're not actually okay hearing no. And if you're not okay hearing no, they'll never feel okay. They'll never say yes if they don't know you're okay hearing no.
I love that. They'll never feel safe saying yes if they're not sure that you're okay hearing no. Because the more attached you are to the outcome, I mean, anybody who has kids, right? If you tell your kids, no, you have to do this, they immediately are like, no, or why, right? But if you're like, hey, we're going to do this fun thing, then all of a sudden they're kind of sucked in, and because it's open, it's available, and they get to be a hero. And part of your sales process really has to be helping your client be a hero to themselves. Because if you're not able to do that, then it is an ask, and you're going to dread it. And you're like, every time you get close to that moment in the call, you're going to be like, ugh. And then that's going to, again, it's going to affect all the other things. So so belief in your process is one leg of the tripod. What's the second leg, Phil?
You got to believe in your offer. You got to believe in what you're selling. And it's like, well, duh, right? Like, come on. Like, what's the real secret sauce? Of course you got to believe in what you're selling. Well, let me qualify that a little bit. Mm-hmm. So because you are selling your own services, your own program, right? I wouldn't be in business if I didn't believe in myself, right? Well, ultimately, if you're not, it goes back to how aligned you are with the person, right? Because if they're not the right person, are you really confident in your offer in this context for them, right? Have you done, have they checked, do they just check the boxes of they have the problem that I solve? Or do they also check the just as important boxes of do I want to work with this person, right? And ultimately, your belief in your offer, your belief in your ability to deliver, it's aligned with like, am I looking forward to what happens if I make the sale. Like if someone says yes, is that exciting for me, or am I filled with dread about what's about to happen? Right?
Exactly. And I want to just
believe in your offer. Yeah.
100%. And I love this because we literally talked about this on Tuesday's call, and it was so sexy that I wrote, if you're on my email list and you've been on my email list, if you were on my email list yesterday, I actually wrote you an email about this. I told this exact story because it happened on our Tuesday call. So sometimes I give you guys sneak peeks. Maria does this a lot. Maria from our coaching team will do this a lot. She'll do posts in the Facebook group about giving you insights and sneak peeks from what's going on our coaching calls. We had a client who she was like, I need clarity. And then she was like, no, I can't really settle on my offer. And it was like, no matter what we fixed, she kept like dancing around and trying to like be like, no, it's not that. I already figured that out. No, it's not that, it's this. And no matter what we fixed, there was always something else. And we were like coach number 5 or something that she had come to. She had burned through all these other coaching programs, not being able to get results. And the reason it worked this time is because I was like, you know what? I'm not answering the question that you're asking me, because it's a bullshit question. It's the question that leads to 3 other questions, that leads to 9 other questions, that leads to, 36 other questions, because that is what is keeping you stuck. So let's talk about the real reason you don't want to put yourself out there, and that you're inconsistent, and that you don't have clarity or any of this jazz. And the real reason turned out to be she had a client that looked perfect on paper. He ticked all the boxes, on paper. But the problem was he refused to take any personal responsibility for the situations that he was creating in his life that he had come to her to help fix. Refused. He was always blaming the other person, always blaming the circumstance, always blaming the thing, no matter how many times different flavors of this happened. And it drove her banana pancakes. And so she was like, well, shit, what she realized is exactly what you just described, Phil. She did not want to have somebody else in her program that might look good on the front end, but then drive her batshit on the back end. And here's the real crux. Here's how we helped her release this. I asked her why. Why do you not want that? I know it sounds like a really stupid question. I'm very famous for my stupid questions. The stupid questions are the best ones because we never think to ask ourselves. Okay. Why? Why does it bother you to have this client or have a client like this client? And really the answer was, it made her feel inadequate as a coach. It made her feel like an imposter. It made her feel frustrated and angry with herself that she was not able to get him to see, because that was her job, to help him to see. And it bothered her so much. She was blaming herself for it, that she didn't actually allow herself to put any or other offers out there. She refused to put herself out there in any meaningful way or make offers because she was afraid it would happen again. So then we had to like release that, be like, all right, why do you don't want to feel inadequate? Like, what does that lead to? And it's like goes down to that pattern of, I'm not good enough, right? I'm not going to be loved. I'm not worthy of love. When we helped her release that, we helped now she's in a position where she's going to see the next time a client shows up this way, she's going to see that the real reason that they don't want to take responsibility for any of the things they've created in their life is because it forces them to say, I created this. I created all this pain for myself. I went and hurt all these other people. I went and lost all those things that I could have had. I went and, fucked all of these things up. That's a lot of weight that she's basically asking him to shoulder. And if she is not able to be in that soft, willing place where she's willing to hear him say no, then he can't say yes. This goes way beyond the sale. This goes well into your coaching practice. If she's not willing to hear him say no, then he doesn't actually have the freedom to say yes. He can't say, oh my God, that is so heavy for me to carry. And she can't take him somewhere she was not willing to go. She was resisting going to that same place of inadequacy that he was resisting. Now that she's been there, she knows it's not that scary. Now she can guide him there. And that's going to make her a kick-ass coach. And that's going to completely show up now in her messaging. Now the brakes are off. Does this make sense? That's what I mean.
It's all connected.
It's all connected. It's all the same process. It's all the same process.
It's business is holistic. That's one of the main things that I'm so excited to be a part of the team here with Geeta is, I've been through a personal development program. I've been through a business coaching program, but this is the only one that I'm aware of, and I'm very aware of this space that presents business as personal development, because they're so inextricably intertwined. like it's a rare circumstance where you just need one or just need the other. You almost always need both, and that's just the truth. And that brings me to the third leg of the tripod. Maybe not the cleanest segue, but we are here. Self-awareness.
Had to get here at some point.
Yeah, right.
So wait. Let's go over the other two again. So yeah, exactly.
So belief in your sales, your marketing and sales process, right? Like your belief that you can generate more calls if this one doesn't go the way that you want, right? You got to believe in that, or else every call is a do or die desperation situation, right? You've got to believe in your offer, right? You have to know that you're looking forward to what happens if someone tells you yes, right?
Yes.
Or else you'll avoid hearing yes. And then last but not least, again, very closely tied to everything else, is you have to believe in your people. You have to believe in your audience, your target market, your ideal client avatar, like, because ultimately, and this is like a big thing for me, like the mission that I'm on, that I'm so like in aligned with Geeta and everything we're doing here together as a team, is like, I want to, like, the age of sales is dead. Okay. The internet killed it. The power dynamic has shifted. We are now entering a golden age of enrollment, where you're not a salesperson, you're not a closer, right? Like, you're not tricking people into buying. You're a decision-making consultant. You're taking all of their info overload and all of their analysis paralysis, and you're giving them clarity and a clear path forward. You're saying, hey, here's your blind spots. This is actually not as hard as it needs to be. This is the straight line from where you're at to where you want to be, right? I'm holding the door open for you. Are you ready to step through it? And for them to say, yes, I'm ready to step through it, sometimes they have to borrow your confidence. Sometimes they've been traumatized to the point where they don't actually trust themselves to say yes, because they've done it in the past and it's burnt them up. And so
100%.
how do you, I mean, and it's funny because in a lot of ways, like, those are some of our favorite clients, right? The people that have been through the ringer, right?
Yes.
And so, but it's like, well, how do you give people who have had their hopes brought up and then dashed on the rocks so many times, how do you show them this is not more of the same? Well, it's a balance, right? Because if you do too much empowerment, too much coaching, too much, here's the salve for your injury, right? It'll give them a false temporary sense of confidence, and they'll think they got what they needed, and they will go and they will say, I don't need to pay you for help because I've gotten all the help that I need right now. But on the flip side, if all you do is just twist the blade and make them focus on how much they've screwed up and how much they've failed and how much you really are just up the creek without a paddle, they won't say yes, because, I mean, they don't even deserve success at this point. They're such a failure. Like, how could they ever, be the kind of person that was in the case study testimonial videos they watched before this call in this decision-making scenario, right? So either extreme, you lose, and they lose too, right? The way it's a win-win is if you strike that balance where you're simultaneously showing them that, hey, I mean, just the fact that we're on this call right now means that you haven't given up, right? Like, you're still seeking. You're not the person who got knocked down and stayed down, just by the virtue of the fact that we're talking, right? Which is great. And at the same time, we also have proven to ourselves that there's a lot of wrong ways to try to get to the mountaintop. And so it's almost like you have to create conditional hope, where it's like, if you have the right system and the right support, you can make it to the mountaintop. But trying to reinvent the wheel by yourself, you either won't want to do that or you can't, right? But at the same time, like, if you don't believe you can do it, no one else will. You got to be, your own biggest cheerleader as a prerequisite for entrepreneurship in general, right? And so you have to strike that balance where it's like, it's conditional hope in a way where it's like, hey, I've listened to you answer enough of my questions to fully see your situation in the context of what I know our program is capable of doing and what I know is just possible in the world of business anyway, which is the beautiful thing about the online coaching space. There's so much magic that happens here that people in analog industries would laugh you out of the room thinking that you're telling them a story, right?
Right.
An anti-capitalist making 70K a month, right? You know, so like ultimately you have to believe in your people, because at the end of the call, this is what I'm really kind of leading up to here. They're not buying your program. They are not making a purchasing decision. They're making a bet. They are placing a wager. Because this is entrepreneurship. No risk, no reward. Yes. They're betting on themselves. They're betting your price tag that they can finally make it happen. They're willing to bet your price tag on themselves and their abilities that with your help, with your support, with your system, the life that they want to wake up to will very soon be the life they do wake up to.
And I want to just add here that this is not exclusive to make money offers, or like if you're not a business coach that's going to help somebody make money, or that they're not an entrepreneur. Let's say you're in the health space, or you're in the relationship space, or you're in any of those spaces, like this totally applies to that too. Like when you think about the average cost of divorce, it starts at around 40K and only goes up like exponentially from there, right? And there's all of the emotional trauma and the children and all of that jazz. So there's lots of, you basically have to help them connect to their highest self. And that's one of the reasons like we really trust our process, because part of our process is going to show you, not tell you that we're different. We're going to fucking prove it to you before you're even a prospect in a way. Because, for example, if you're in this group, you can go check out the Clarificator, right? This is a 5-step subconscious blocks exercise that I created. That's something I use. This is a tool I use multiple times a week to get me through stuckness, to get me through, when I'm feeling scared, if I feel doubt, if I'm going to make a big decision, hiring, firing, all of those things. This is the tool that I use, and the link is on the screen here. Go to impactwithinfluence.com/clarificator with an OR at the end. And you will see, if you actually don't make the mistake of watching the video and thinking you've done it. I can't tell you the number of, I will tell you who the successful clients are versus the people who are not going to get results. The people who are not going to get results are the people who are tasting. They're at the buffet. They're going to go watch the video. They're going to watch like half of it. They're going to watch maybe 3/4 of it. Maybe they'll even watch all of it. And they'll be like, oh yeah, this makes total sense. They're going to think about it a little bit while they're listening to the video play. And they're going to think, oh, wow, that was cool. I did it. Yeah, I totally did it. Yeah, sure. This makes sense. Those are the people who are not going to get results in our program or in any program. The people who do get results, and there are some of those people watching right now who have done this exercise, we cancel their calls when they applied to talk to us. Well, like, you're not ready. This doesn't make any, this is not the right time for you. We can tell just from your application, it's not the right time for you. Go use our free tools. Go use this particular tool. Go find out what your own inhibitors and subconscious limiters are. It will be such an education for you. And we will give you the tools for you to try our process for yourself for real and see. And that makes people more ready to work with us. So we trust our process because the process alone creates clients for us. That's like the next level. When you really understand who your ideal client is and you're that confident in your offer and you've built something that's real, not only will your process and your messaging attract people who are the right fit, they will create people that are the right fit. And that's what I'm so freaking excited to share with all of our clients, because we figured out how to do this. So if you want help with that, if you're a coach, if you're a consultant, so obviously if you're in the MLM space, we're not the right fit. We will cancel your app anyway, because we don't know how to do that. We don't do it. If you're a brick and mortar business or e-com business, and that's what you do, again, not the right fit. We're going to cancel your app because we don't do physical products. We're in specifically the premium coaching and consulting space, which means what you do for people has to be worth at a minimum $3,000 to $3,500. So every client who's going to sign up with you is going to pay you $3,500 at the minimum, and then all the way up to $35K, $50K, whatever it is, and then on. Okay. your offer has to solve a problem that is that pressing, and you have to be that good, as Reina says on screen, do the fucking work.
I
If
know.
you've done the work, if you've been your own client,
I put Reina on screen. It's beautiful.
As you have that voice of God.
I know.
Reina has like the one liner.
It's just Reina. Reina just wins again.
So all this to say, like if you've done your work, if you've been your own best client, if you know you've worked with a lot of people, whether maybe for a lot cheaper or whatever, but you've done the work, you're consistently successful with your process, whether it's for other people or even if you're your own best client and you've been your only client, but you're now ready to take this process out into the world, that qualifies too. You don't have to have worked with 100 people before you get to us, but you do have to have absolute faith that if somebody were to pay you a premium, you can help them for real. If you have that, then use the link on the screen, watch my 30-minute training where I walk you through exactly what we help you with. What is the specific process? What is the support that we provide? All of those things. And then if you feel aligned, then, book a call and you'll probably end up speaking to Phil or someone else on my team who's going to help you make an enrollment decision. Is this the right decision? Are we the right fit? Are you the right fit? And if we're both the right fit, is this the right time? Because sometimes it's not. And we'll just tell you. And we have things for you to use if it's not the right time. So we're never going to kind of leave you floating, poke your pain, and then just set you free. We don't do that. So, yeah. So there it is. Does anybody have questions? We have a few minutes. Wow, we've gone over time. Figures. There's two of us.
That never happens when it's the two of us riffing. Yeah, never.
There you go. So Mariella said.
We have famous 30-minute morning meeting slots that almost always end at the 59-minute mark. So it's a great time.
I know. All right. We'll see if we have time to maybe answer one question. Let's see. Yeah. Namita says the clarificator works like magic. It really does. It really, really, really does. Like it is one of our most powerful tools in the actual program. And I've made it available here for free. So if you're not using it, you're wasting your own money and time, friends. Like this is the real deal. Just use it. All right. I think we're good. I mean, I don't see any questions popping up. Maybe there's a delay. If the questions do pop up, Phil and I will come back and answer some of your specific questions in the comments section. Thank you so much for spending time with us. We will see you next Thursday at 3 p.m. as always, and there will be more training. There's a poll somewhere in the Facebook group in Messaging That Makes Money on Facebook. Go look at that poll. There's a whole bunch of topics that I've put out there. Vote on the ones that you most want to hear us create training on, and your wishes are command. All right. Bye. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, Geeta.
Bumper, you are muted. And the end and